I think you did the Ty Lopez mastermind. You're at 20 million now. I mean, you started with nothing.
We've grown from scratch. We grew most of our business from scratch. I started their first office as a scratch agency.
Buckle up. It's the Insurance Dudes podcast.
Welcome to the Insurance Dudes.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, hey, I appreciate you reaching out, and sorry that we're coming up on the year anniversary. So I know that's real tough, and we're going to get into some of that because we definitely want to support, and we'll just dive in. It's pretty informal.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. But it's
very informal.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can choose anything that you may like the most that's on the back wall there.
What's that?
On his back wall, he has some 80s memorabilia.
Nice.
I'm big on the Back to the Future.
He's got a
Back to the Future is pretty strong. Yeah.
New Bill and Ted's
that's new.
poster.
So, there you go. I like it. Yeah.
Well, awesome.
Dave, I've never talked to you before.
Yeah, no, I mean, we haven't formally talked in person. I think on social media here and there, but not.
You have a strong story from what I hear. And I've heard a little bit of it, your backstory. But for those who haven't heard the whole thing, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, I got with Allstate back in 2009. I was kind of in a unique situation. Everything just kind of fell into place. So it's back in 2009. I was a store manager at Circuit City for about 10 years. That was my first job out of college. Used to play college baseball. Growing up, I thought that's what I was going to do for life, is play pro ball. Obviously, that didn't work out. Ended up hurting my arm. Went to school, moved to a different college for tool and die, came out. Hated doing that. It just wasn't my passion whatsoever. So I had a friend that worked in the car stereo department at Circuit City, and it was supposed to be a temporary job at the time. I went in, found out I was pretty good at people, good at talking with people, became a pretty good salesperson, became the number one car stereo salesperson in the company in a short period of time, moved up, became
the whole company?
In the company of Circuit City. Yeah. And then became a manager. So they moved me into management, and then I became a store manager. Did that for about 10 years. I was also towards the end of things too. Half the time I was a store manager, and then I was an executive flying down to home office for Circuit City on an innovations team, coming up with basically new business concepts. Towards the end, I ended up coming down with health issues, and they didn't know what was going on with me. I just had my ankle started to swell up. I couldn't walk. I was having just severe back pain, and to the point where I was disabled and I was off of work. They found out what it was. It was almost a form of rheumatoid arthritis. Started putting me on a lot of different medication. Started to hit my 6-month mark. I wasn't ready to come back to work, but they were going to terminate me if I went past 6 months, because that was the longest they could hold my job. Forced myself to get back to work before I was ready. Obviously, being off of work for 6 months and not getting paid what you're used to getting paid can put you in a pretty tough financial spot. That's where I was. I was back behind on my mortgage, borrowing money from people, came back to work 4 months later after being back to work, finally getting back in the swing of things. Circuit City announced that they're filing Chapter 11, and I was going to lose my career. I worked most of my adult life for 10 years. Knew I needed to do something different, but here I was with my health wasn't in the best place. My finances wasn't in the best place, and I didn't have a job. Wasn't sure what I was going to do. I had a friend of the family that was in Allstate at the time, decided to look into insurance, started looking at different companies. By far, Allstate had the best program. So I started just before I even knew much about it, getting my licenses. People told me, go work for somewhere first because most businesses fail. Get your feet wet. And I was like, you know what? I just needed to create a life. I was sick of working for people. I always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and I needed to create a life for myself, especially with the way my health was. I knew that I couldn't be on my feet, and I needed to do something on my own terms. So I decided that was going to be the way I wanted to go. And when I sat down, realized that I needed capital, and I had some debt that needed to be paid off too, that was getting in the way of starting up. So right after the conversation where I met with a recruiter and an FSL at Allstate, liquidators started coming in, and they made a request to us that all the open merchandise in the store, they wanted to blow out for pennies on the dollar. And I saw that as my opportunity to raise my capital. So I asked the liquidators, what if I bought it all from every Circuit City store within 3 hours of me? I took the last $7,000 out of my 401k. I took the hit on it. I bought about $80,000 worth of electronics. I sold it all online on eBay, paid off all my debt that I needed to pay, paid my bills for the time being while I was still off of work, and raised the capital that I needed to start my first scratch agency. Hired 2 people that lost their job with me at Circuit City. And then honestly, I just acted as if somebody was trying to take it away from me 24 hours a day, because I knew that was the path in between where I was and where I needed to go. And no joke, I have it to this day at my house still. I wrote myself out before I even really got into the business and understood it. I just knew that you could make money in it, and people did. I wrote myself out a check for $1 million, framed it, took my unemployment card in there and stuck it in there. Just so I looked at it every single day, as that was my goal to hit. And the unemployment card was there to remind myself that where I came from the bottom. And it wasn't about the money. It was really what that check, if I could cash it one day, symbolized. And it symbolized that I could create, again, a path for myself on my own terms, just a life for my family, and life for my beautiful wife, life for my parents. My parents growing up, I had a brother, the brother that passed away. He went down the wrong path in life. That's what led to his passing, was addiction. And growing up, when he went down that path, my parents never wanted to see me or my sister ever go down that same path. So my dad would literally work day and night around the clock. He had his own business putting gutters on houses. So he would work all day long, come back home, snowplow, literally operate on 2 to 3 hours sleep to make sure we didn't go down that same path. And they never saved for retirement, never bought new clothes for themselves. So I made a mission that I wanted to take care of them in their later years. And that I was able to do. Eventually, I set a goal by 35 to cash that check. I did it by 34 and a half. Every single inner circle trip that we've won, and we've made it just about every year since in business. I brought my parents on, and we've grown from scratch. We grew most of our business from scratch. I started their first office as a scratch agency. Then we did another office as a scratch agency, another office as a scratch agency, finally acquired a book, and then my wife got into business. Fast forward to today, we're up to about $20 million in reoccurring revenue that we built. And it was everything with Circuit City was a blessing in disguise, and was one of the best decisions that I ever made in my life, and living a totally different life right now, feeling really blessed.
Like, that's quite a story. That's unreal. The perspective you have from going through that, I'm sure, is just, I mean, you can't put a dollar amount on that. I mean, your dad to sacrifice like that is awesome.
No, 100%. And I think it was the sight of losing that like motivated me, that fear, to get me to be successful early on, because I was literally still back then, when they needed a capital, I think it was maybe like $25,000. And by the time we started going in expenses, I was 2 months away from going out of business unless I hit the pavement hard and started bringing in revenue. Our first customer to this day is still with us, Geraldo Hernandez. It took us 4 hours to sign up his first policy. So I remember the trainers came in on day one, and they said the first 2 weeks we're going to train and then we can sell. And I was like, listen, I don't have time to sit around and train. We need to sell now. And we were in a shopping mall across from the DMV. So he was the first person. I just started pulling people out of the line and bringing them in. I'm like, you're going to train me while I'm bringing people in and trying to sell them. And the guy was incredibly patient. The trainer trained us while we were quoting and signing this person up in All-Star. And then we just learned fast and furious just by quoting, 100% focused on revenue, everything that we did. And when we started, there was no CRM system or marketing or anything like that. It was literally almost like calling out of a phone book. I think we had Cole X dates, and we were just calling from a normal desk phone, just pounding lists off pieces of paper that we're printing out on Cole S dates manually. We hit up our friends and family first, and then went through that pretty quick, and then just started dialing literally night and day until we started to build up a revenue stream. And as we build up the revenue stream, I just studied night and day the business, learning different systems, figuring out what obstacles and roadblocks were in our way, in my team's way, that we could simplify, and then started investing in marketing systems, processes, and that's where things began to scale out. And we started to replicate and bring on more talent, and continued to grow.
That's awesome.
How different do you think it is for somebody starting out now versus when you jumped in? Because you mentioned All-Star, which a lot of the folks that are going to be on here never even heard of.
Yeah, I think it's different, but the same. So there's like a different dynamic. We got different systems. I think the problem out there for people starting out is there's day one, you get hit with a fire hose and there's too many shiny objects out there, and everybody's like kind of focused on everything. When I believe your first day, especially as a scratch agent, there is one thing that is important and one thing only, and it's figuring out how to drive revenue to stay in business and grow that thing as fast as possible. Obviously, keeping the customer experience in consideration, being that trusted advisor. But a lot of the minutia out there that I think sometimes people fall victim into focusing on, well, I need to learn this, or everybody's trying to become an expert in everything before they feel comfortable, like really diving in and growing the business. It's like, figure it out. Cause that's how we learn the quickest. We became the most nimble, is like, we didn't care about any of that other things. We just turned off the blinders and just went in one specific direction, focusing on growing the business. And we probably learned quicker than we ever would have learned by just having that mentality. Again, acting as if somebody was trying to take it away from us 24 hours a day.
That's awesome. So when did it really start ramping for you? So you're at 20 million now. I mean, you started with nothing. Obviously, right out of the gate, you're trying to figure it all out. There had to be that curve, right? That exponential.
I think our first month, I didn't have any insurance experience or anything coming out. We did about 75 items, just kind of winging it. And then we hit 100, probably like maybe month 2 or month 3 in. That's when we added more staff into it, got up to about 6 staff. I think we built that book to, in a couple of years, 2.5 million. Then at that point, I was in a shopping mall at the time. It was only 700 square feet. We were starting to outgrow it. We got to the point where literally in the 700 square feet space, we built these like cubicles that were tight, and we had 12 people in there all working on top of each other. While we were buying the building that I'm in now, we found this rundown foreclosure building the bank was sitting on for a while, got a really good deal on it, renovated it out. My dad actually came in, did a lot of the work, and built it into what it was today. But we were looking for something we could expand in and grow into. And this was 6,000 square feet. So we bought that building, or this building here, acquired it, did another agency. We grew about double the rate that we did in the first one, grew to about 4.5 million in the second agency. Then we did the third agency of scratch, where we grew that from scratch up to 7.5 million. We obviously wrote more business than that, but that's what it ended up at today. And then we acquired one book of business, and then my wife joined in and she acquired a book as well.
That's cool. So she runs that other agency, or how does that work?
Yeah, so she has her own agency that she runs, but we still do operate as a duo and a team, kind of working off of each other's strengths. So what I try to do is really protect my role as almost the visionary, so to speak, the creative person, the person's up top on the totem pole, looking down at everything to make sure everything's running efficiently. Because I think one thing I've learned being in business too, the one trap you can fall into if you try to do everything yourself, the business starts to run you rather than you running the business. And while you're focused on this one thing that you think is important, whether it's handling customer calls or you're selling or whatever that may be, there's 1,000 fires burning around you that you could have had the foresight to see if you're up top in the pole. So I'm a big believer, and there's got to be somebody up there, like basically scouting the field, making sure that they're looking for landmines for the team so they don't run into them, and then figuring out a way to solve problems and roadblocks for them so they can just keep moving forward and hitting targets and hitting goals. So that's really my role. And then she's there really on the operational side, making sure everything's running operationally in the business. Has the entire service team kind of reporting up to her, watching over that. And then we have a sales director, a director of operations in our agency. The sales director is basically in charge of a few sales supervisors. Each of those sales supervisors have multiple 1 to 2 LSPs underneath them that they're in charge of managing, or along with maybe a telemarketer or two. On her side, director of operations, they have a supervisor underneath that. And then they have customer service reps that roll up to that supervisor that they have. So they have that kind of hierarchy where, we're at the top of the pole, where the 2 direct reports roll up to us. And then they take care of everything from there on down.
What was the challenges you had scaling from obviously your first agency to where you're at today? I mean, that's a huge leap. And I know it was gradual, but what are some of the things that you learned?
I'd say a lot of it was, it was just learning over time. And I'd say a big thing was, first and foremost, we had to create infrastructure. So as we started to scale, and you start to grow too fast, sometimes you get to a point where you're scaling chaos. You're growing and you're hitting goals, but it's a little more of a rocky road than you would hope for. So we learned very quickly we had to create that type of infrastructure where we had direct people underneath us, teams underneath them. And it's more than just an infrastructure too. It's a ladder for everybody. So we have really high retention amongst our core staff that have been with us. Our core staff that have been with us has been 3 years plus. We have people who have been with us for 7 years, 5 years, but it's because they have that ladder to grow. We're basically, even if they start in our organization as a sales support, which is a telemarketer, we give them the path. If they do what it takes, they can move up to licensed agent. From a licensed agent can move up to a senior licensed agent where they have additional licenses. From there, they can become a supervisor. From there is sales director or director of operations. And in any of those roles too, those that aspire to be agency owners, we have on development plans to eventually own their own agency. We've probably spun off about 4 or 5 people to own their own agency so far. We have a couple people that are very close to doing the same now, and then more people behind them that are working their way, whether they're a year, 2 years, or 3 years out, to eventually own their own agency. So I really align their goals with mine. And it's when we're talking about what we're trying to accomplish, it aligns with what they're trying to accomplish as well. So if you can't do this in this role, you're not going to be able to do this. Like if you get the keys to the kingdom and you got all these other things to worry about. So that's their why and their purpose that they have every single day. Is we're real big on finding out what drives our people and supporting them both from a professional and a personal standpoint. So we do vision boards. We refresh them probably every quarter where they put their personal goals and their professional goals on them. And we touch base with our team consistently, making sure that they're always feeling like they're at least moving an inch closer to that every single day.
That's awesome.
Wildly successful here in our world, the Allstate world, but you've also got some other things going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, that led us to the success in this business too, led us to going into other things. So Tom Bianco and I, we actually joined Ricochet CRM system. So we started using Ricochet in our own business. Found it was probably one of the most robust CRM systems that we had ever used before. And then we just started referring business over to them, built a relationship with the owner, and we ended up heading the entire insurance vertical. And we scaled the company pretty substantially so far and have a really good working relationship with them that's continuously growing. A big key to our success, I think mine and Tom's success, as we started to work together as partners and we worked together phenomenal, was finding the right people. So we actually went out, we hired our own recruiter that we shared together to always be hiring and recruiting for us. And we really refined a dynamic process and to find staff. But when we didn't have hiring needs, we were outsourcing that person to other agents. They're having such a good experience. They started referring other people to us, and Team Hired was formed. We just built our own staffing recruiting company called Team Hired. It's starting to get some pretty good success. And we do things a little bit differently than the normal staffing recruiting company. So we find almost to find good talent, find it quick, conserve time is, treating it a lot like a numbers game, getting a lot of candidates in front of you at once. So we just did a staffing event at my agency, for example. We put a big campaign out online, had 154 people sign up for interviews for one staffing event that we did. We had 72 people show up. And we ended up getting about, 7 or 8 hires out of that one hiring event that we did, 4 telemarketers, 2 customer service, 2 benefit specialists, and a sales rep that we did out of it. But we've been doing that. I know we just recently worked with Lisa Fana. We did a little event for her on a smaller scale, and it was a massive success for her. I think she's hiring about 2 to 3 people out of that, just out of one event, one showing that they had go there. And we're excited. We love working with other businesses, entrepreneurs, and agency owners, helping them, scale their businesses. So, and we're just always looking to diversify.
That's so cool, man. I love that. So we just talked to another agency owner, and we were talking about how even coaches need coaches. And I noticed that I think you did the Ty Lopez Mastermind.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big proponent on self-development. And even in this past year, I've just really doubled down on it. I've always read books. I've always tried to invest in myself. But I'd say it wasn't with the right level of intention. And when I went to 10X and I met Ty there, I've always seen Ty online. But when you get up on stage, he's probably one of the brightest business entrepreneurs that I've ever seen out there. He's just a real smart guy. Follows Warren Buffett and a lot of these people. And he's a big proponent on just always be learning every day. And he literally reads a book a day. So he's always growing and always getting better. And I joined his small mastermind, went into that, did the small mastermind with him. And it was so great. We got so much value out of it. We did a visit at his house, and I joined a large mastermind, made a big investment. Probably last year alone, we invested over 6 figures between travel, going to conferences and mastermind events. But we'd go out to him every couple months, out to his house or different venues that he would have. And what that looked like is he would come in and teach business practices, how he scaled his business, have his partner come in, Alex Mayer, that is actually the co-founder of MentorBox with him, scaled Zeus that he just sold for $255 million, a dating company that he had. And they would talk about different aspects, how like on a marketing, one part of the conference would be on marketing and how they used marketing to grow their business. And they would give you a complete blueprint on that. And then they would pull in basically other badasses just like that would come in and share how they built their companies. And it was pretty interesting too, because you saw different people from different industries and different verticals talk about how these built these businesses from scratch. And you could see the commonalities amongst all of them, but also get key insights. Wow, this is how we could get into another business. We actually met a guy out there that built this from scratch, $25 million solar company in his first year. And we're potentially working on a strategic partnership with him to get into solar. But had I not thought outside the box and realized that, you know what, I need to start getting in rooms where I'm uncomfortable, that's going to make me grow with people that are a lot taller and talented than me. That's going to allow me to grow and accelerate a lot faster. I got a chance, opportunity to meet some of these people. And then it's a lot of other entrepreneurs just from around the country that are in insurance. They're in debt collection. They've built timeshare businesses, and you get to collaborate. So half of it is learning from people. Another half of it is collaboration and networking with other individuals.
That's awesome. And so also not just revenue generation and not just profit, you're also involved in some philanthropy. So tell me a little bit about Inspire a Nation.
Yeah, absolutely. So Inspire Nation's our nonprofit. We formed that, and we've been doing a lot through that in my brother's name as well. But I've always been a big proponent on giving back. For the past 10 years, we've actually worked with the local Boys and Girls Club of Rochester. We even had a relationship back at Circuit City days. We started there helping families out there. It started out small, and it scaled every single year, where we took on one family, and I still keep in touch with them every single year since. We helped them out during the holiday times. That started to build up year after year after year, to the point where I think our biggest year, we had like 2,500 gifts we raised during Christmas time for about 180 people in our local community and kids that we got gifts for. And usually each kid gets about 10, 15 gifts. So we started out doing that, and really wanted to expand it, and decided to start our own nonprofit, Inspire a Nation. And the intent and purpose behind that is actually going out and really doing acts of good and making a difference in the local community. Because I felt that there's just so much negativity these days in society. And there's a lot of people with the old school thinking way of thought that, you know what, when I go out and do good, I want to keep that to myself. You shouldn't brag about doing good. You shouldn't publish about doing good. Just do it, and do it in silence. But I think the problem with that is nobody sees anybody doing good, so it doesn't catch on, and there's not this contagious factor. But people do see negativity, and negativity can be even more contagious. So I thought there had to be something that counterbalanced that, and try to do our part as much as possible. So if anybody looks at our page, Inspire a Nation, you can see on there, we just go out in the local community and just do random acts of good, from could be tipping a local waitress to, we met this really unique individual that was driving a taxi one day, and we saw he was 85 years old and worked his entire life, and he was still supporting kids, working his family, and that's all he did was work. And even when we gave him a tip, he said he was giving that tip back to his kids, and we wanted to do something for him. So we called him for a taxi cab ride one day, and we had all of our staff lined up with gift cards and gifts for him lined up. So to just kind of thank him for being who he was, going out and doing things like that, sharing them on social media to encourage other people to do it, but also at the same time show them that, it doesn't even have to be monetary. It could be a simple gesture, making it a point every single day to be deliberate about impacting one person's day, even with a conversation, to brighten up their day. Because I'm a firm believer in what Mother Teresa said. One person in society, I think, can create this ripple effect that could be lasting, that affects other people, then to affect other people. And then also through the nonprofit too, like in my brother's name, we'll go out there and do different fundraisers and initiatives. Just last year, a few months after he passed, like on his birthday, we put together a fundraiser quick, raised about $24,000 between community grants and fundraising efforts that we did. And we have a scholarship program in his name. and it's a Gary Williams scholarship program. We were able to gift 24 scholarships to kids, at-risk youth in our local community, giving them all a $1,000 scholarship they could put towards their education. And we had a couple of circumstances that really, that $1,000, sometimes you think, wow, it's $1,000 with the cost of school and college, that's a drop in the bucket, but it really can go a long way. Because we had a couple of kids that were on the verge, in the financial situation they were on the verge of getting kicked out of good schools. There was one kid specifically that was in one school. It was historically a lower performing school. His grades weren't necessarily where they needed to be. They put him in this higher performing school that obviously required an investment, and immediately turned around and started getting A's and B's. And this kid was in jeopardy of losing that position in the school and having to go back to where he was. But because of one of those scholarships, he got to continue on where he was doing his education. And I think the final component of it too is educating business owners too, because we find the number one reason why people don't get back is I don't got the time and I don't got the money. And we try to educate business owners that you can actually integrate that as a part of your business and actually make your business a for-purpose business. And what I mean by that, an example of that would be Tom Shoes. If you look at Tom Shoes, they started out as a normal shoe company, had some decent success, but where they really expanded and got legs is when they became a for-purpose company and they decided to, for example, stop selling their shoes for an average of $40 per pair, up them to $45 per pair, and said, for every pair of shoes that we sell, we're actually going to put a pair of shoes on somebody else's feet that can't afford to do so. Their company exploded, but at the same time, they gave back to their communities across the nation. And I think insurance agents, anybody can do that too. Think about how can you make your insurance agency or your business a for-purpose business where part of your core value proposition of why to do business with you is that you're giving back to the local community. So when they have a decision to go with Geico, they have a decision to go with Progressive, or a decision to go with you, I know I'm going to feel a lot better with going with a company that knows, cares about me, and they're giving back to their local community, making an impact, and knowing even if a small portion of my dollars are going back to something that good, I want to do business with that person, even if it costs a little bit more money. So that's really what we do with the nonprofit. And then coming up this Tuesday, the 1-year anniversary of my brother passing, we're actually trying to put together a day of good in his name, where we're challenging friends, colleagues, business owners, anybody in the Allstate community to go out there and just conduct an act good, put it on social media, just like I talked about, to try to create that ripple effect in hashtag Gary Williams, hashtag Inspire Nation on our page. And our goal there is to try to honor his legacy that day, but at the same time, create a big buzz that gets attention. Because I think a lot of times when you create attention, you can create intention, and we can get more people being cognitive that they can go out and do these type of things in their local community as well on a consistent basis.
Well, the dudes are on board with you. We'll definitely do it. That's awesome.
100%. So could one more time, could you just explain what we can do or how other Allstate agents or any of our listeners can really contribute?
100%. So if anybody goes to my page, Inspire a Nation, so Inspire a Nation on Facebook, you'll see examples of like local deeds that we've done in our community and post it out there. But it's really on that day, we're looking for people to go out and do an act of good, whether it's maybe over tipping your waitress, a kind gesture, a conversation to somebody, visiting a nursing home, volunteering somewhere. It can be something incredibly simple, posting out about it. Best scenario, putting a video out there showing what you did. Second best, putting a photo out there with a little caption. Third best, just putting out a caption of what you did out there just to share it, and then tag the page Inspire a Nation and hashtag Gary Williams, hashtag Inspire a Nation. And again, we're just trying to get as many people as possible in there. And we have a local senator that's going to support and do it. We got a lot of local businesses. Our entire team's going out that day. I know we've had a lot of Allstate agents. We've probably had 30 or so Allstate agents say they're going to go out there too. So we're climbing towards that 100 plus number. That's our goal, to try to get 100 or more people out there simultaneously doing that. Because if you think about that too, just imagine in one day, you start to see buzz on social media, 100 plus people going out there making an impact in different ways. Think about the ripple effect of that. 100 different people, average 500 friends each one of those people have. And they get to see that. And then even if you got 1% of those people that went out and did something in conjunction to that, that could have a mass effect that touches a lot of people. You never know when you talk to that many people who it deeply affects in a way. It could save a life. It could turn somebody's life around. You just never know what you're going to do with just one simple act.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
huge.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you implement the give back?
Yeah, so we'll do different things all the time where we're doing different initiatives, fundraisers. We'll even do quotes for a cause sometimes. We'll tell people just for having a conversation with us about their insurance, nothing to do with purchasing insurance, something like that, just for having a conversation. We'll donate on their behalf to maybe kids in Haiti. And we'll work with like a local organization to feed a kid for a week, different things like that, giving back to veterans. We'll go out and just do initiatives where I think on Mother's Day, we went out and visited the nursing home, went around and brought flowers and roses to all the mothers there that may not have had anybody that would have went there to visit them. Memorial Day, we went to the grave sites and cleared them off and decorated them with flags. I actually spent 2 days on the street, living on the street as a homeless person to better understand the homeless situation, and met a bunch of young kids that were in unfortunate situations that all got on the streets in different ways. And they got in a fight with their family, thought they're going to be on the street temporarily, ended up on the street for 2 years. Another person that moved there with a dream to start a business and it didn't work out and ended up on the streets homeless for 3 years. And all of them fell victim of getting into drug addiction and heroin. You know, a lot of these kids that they're talking about, what their biggest struggle was being out on the street as fast as they try to get ahead, fast as they try to get out of their situation. They're getting pulled back into it. They're fighting against the addiction, plus being on the street with little to no resources. So we, one day down in California, spent a couple $1,000s building tent communities for them, food, giving them additional resources out there, and then tried to stay in contact with them to hook them up with a path either back to their family or somewhere else. And we've actually had a couple kids reach out to us in contact. One of them just made it off the streets, 3 years being on the streets in full recovery and rehab, back with his family. So the homeless situation, that's got a kind of a soft spot in my heart, along with at-risk youth that are out there too, because I think there's a lot of kids growing up these days they're in broken school systems, in a combination with a broken home, in a combination of not having a mentor, which I think is disastrous. So that's like another focus of ours, is trying to mentor youth that are in those situations, to put them in help them get into a better scene. Those are a few of the ways that we'll try to get back in our agency.
Did you document that process when you went out on the streets?
Yeah, we did. We actually got a lot of video footage on it. It was actually quite interesting too. We're trying to put it together in a compilation. I'm going to do something again here local in Rochester, but I was out in California and I just got inspired to do it because there was this guy. I was out there, saw him. It actually started like this. Let's try to make a long story short. I was driving down the streets of California and I saw these homeless people in tents, and I thought how tragic that was. And I was thinking to myself, I'd like to do something. And an eighth of a mile later down the road, there was this sign that came up that said Church's Chicken. And I've never heard of a restaurant called Church. And I guess that's a chain down there. But to me, that was a sign that God told me to feed those people. So I drove in there, filled up the convertible with like 50 burgers, and just walked down the street in my dress shirt and handing out food to everybody, feeding them. Met this one guy that was down there, Kenny, was telling me his circumstance, how he got on the street. And he was a regular guy like you and I at one time in our lives, and just fell on hard times and got stuck out there. He did voiceover work and things like that too. So I did a video recording of him with him. And I was like, hey, contact me. Maybe I'll try to get you some work and try to help any way I can. I shared that video with my wife, and she's like, wow, I'm glad you took that video, because you could have told me about that and I would have understood. But the fact you showed me, that was just powerful. And that's actually right before Inspire Nation started with the videos, because that showed me right there. I was like, wow, we need to like bring this to life in the form of a video to show people the problems that are out there, so they see how they can impact them and they can see the depth of them. So I did that. And then I met another guy that was out there. He was outside of a Burger King, and bought him a sandwich. Something told me to sit down and talk to him. And I talked to him, and he actually said I was the first one in years to come down and take the time to talk to him and ask questions. He came out there 3 years prior. He was going to go out there with the mother of his 3 kids. She was going to start a hair salon. He was going to start a tattoo parlor. He was in a band. The band broke up, so he was on the street temporarily. And he said temporarily turned into a month. That turned into 2 months. And he said people treat them so badly out there, like they're not even human beings. They spit on them. They swear at him. And he goes, he got so depressed that he turned to drugs, which the drug dealers literally prey on these guys all day long. So what they do is, as fast as they panhandle and get money, they know when they need their next fix. About 30 hours later, they come there, they take all their money that they panhandled for the day to give them their fix, and they're in this vicious cycle. And then they'll try to build tents to put over their head, but the cities and the towns, they'll come in and rip their tents down. So as fast as they try to get ahead and put something over their head so they don't have the weather to deal with, or even just the lights, because they talk about one of the reasons why they also get stuck on drugs too, because it's the only way to escape the scene they're in, because they got cars driving by, they got lights, they can barely sleep at night. And that's the only way they can get a good night's sleep is trying to find their next fix. And they're just stuck in this cycle that they can never get out of between the addiction and the lack of resources. And then when they go to a shelter, the shelter is really not designed to help. It's like a temporary Band-Aid, stay here temporarily. But I think with the homeless, there's a few different types of homeless people out there. There's people that just got on the street. There's people that are on the street for a while. And then there's people that are having challenges mentally that are out there. So they really need, in their truest form, different forms of treatment to help each one of them. But when they go to these shelters, it's like they're all combined into one, which creates maybe a scary atmosphere, especially somebody that's new to the streets. When that person that's been out there 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I mean, that's probably the best opportunity that somebody can come in and save them at that point. So I got a chance to learn really about this that I never understood at that depth of how people get out there. I think a lot of times you walk by and you just assume what got them there. And there's really a big backstory to a lot of these people. There was another kid that I met that was out there. He basically blamed it on the school system. Said he was in school, he hit life, and life was nowhere near what school was. He wasn't prepared for life. Life hit him in the face. His girlfriend broke up with him at the same time. He didn't know what to do. He turned to drugs, ended up on the street, was on there for 3 years. But he was a bright kid. He actually played really good guitar, and we videoed him playing guitar. And he taught himself. He actually found broken phones and tablets and went to Wi-Fi hotspots and found YouTube videos on how to play guitar. Had a guitar that somebody gave him on the streets and actually taught himself riffs and how to play music. And the music is what got him through the day and allowed him to not want to not exist anymore. And that kept him going. So we documented a lot of that. And I went down to Goodwill and actually bought clothes and dressed up. After I did all that, I wanted to learn more at a deeper level. Went out on the streets the following day as if I was a homeless person, because I went from helping them on the streets. And it was interesting to do that experiment too, because when I was helping people, everybody's congratulating me. I'm walking in the store buying things for them. They're like, oh, it's great that you're doing that. We do that all the time. Not everybody likes to give back. It's great that you did that. When I went on the street the next day, went into those same stores dressed up as a homeless person, those same people say they help people all the time. They treated me like I was a criminal. Immediately I walked in the store, they called loss prevention. They were trying to kick me out. And then on video, I literally took off my hat and I said, don't you remember me? And they got a little freaked out. They're like, no, you're the guy from the night before. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, take a time to tell me about why you reacted the way you did. And they admitted that, I think we're so stigmatized by it that when we walk by people sometimes that we just assume their money's just going to go to drugs. They just assume they're maybe a bad person and they forget that they're still a human being. And in a time that they need to be lifted up, the last thing that they need is somebody else kicking them down. And instead they'll lend a hand to try to pull them up. It was an experience that I'll never forget because people treated me like I didn't even exist on the streets when I was out there doing it.
What a crazy contrast.
Yeah.
People are crazy. I mean, we all want to be that person that helps, but truly when it comes down to it, how many times do we pass somebody or the homeless person's walking next to you, you might dodge them or something where it could just be a friendly hi. There's definitely
Absolutely. And for me too, I think it's when I'm giving back, I'm never in a better place where I feel less stress. It's kind of strange too, no matter what's going on in life, when I'm giving back to somebody and I see it's making an impact in them, your stress isn't there, your problems aren't there, your problems all of a sudden become so small. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's almost therapeutic in a way that I never feel more balanced when I'm trying to give back to society. So that's another thing that I'd say motivates me to try to do more. And I'm a big believer too. It's not the reason why we do it, but the more you give in this world, I think the universe is designed a specific way. And the more good you put into it, the more good comes back in return to you. I can't think of countless scenarios when we've done something good for other people, even in times where it's difficult to do so. It's in those same times, literally 2 days later, things just fall in your lap, things happen, things that you worried about before just tend to fall into place. Whichever reason that may be, I always find that to be the case when you're doing the right thing by people.
So you do so much. Where you are now to compare where you were 10 years ago, 15 years ago is remarkable. 10 years ago, I was in it's like 15 years ago, horrible place. I didn't have a job. It took me a long time to kind of pull myself out mentally. My mindset was just messed up. What would you tell somebody that might be in a mindset? I mean, this is a lot of insurance agents that listen, but like they might look at you and go, hey man, he's got it all. He's got this big agency. I mean, obviously it didn't start that way, but he's got this big agency. He doesn't get it. I could never do it. Right. That's what everybody tells themselves. They're in that mindset of the victim. I think there's a lot of victim mindsets in insurance, especially now that it's kind of changing and it's harder to acquire customers. What would you say to help them kind of pull themselves out of that mindset and go to like the abundance mindset that you seem to have?
Absolutely. I mean, first off, being transparent. Every day isn't sunshine and roses. Like the more money, more problems. The more you take on, the more problems they are. I think the biggest thing was investing in myself to make myself more capable. I could deal with those problems more nimbly and I could figure out how to solve them a lot quicker. And my problems shifted by continuously investing in myself. So the things that I worried about 10 years ago, I thought about if I worried about them now, like I'd feel like I'm out of my mind. And, you know, one of the things that I learned in my mentor program with Ty Lopez was I asked him the question, because we get opportunities to ask these guys, a question here and there. And I asked him the question, if he could go back to his 20-year-old self and give himself like a couple pieces of wisdom that would allow him to get where he is today in half the time back then, what would those be? You know, one of the things that he said was keep acquiring knowledge at a rapid rate, becoming better and better. That's what Warren Buffett does. You read, the guy gets up with a cup of coffee, eats his McDonald's and reads a book every single day. And he does that to getting better every single day to stay sharp. What he does is when he gets better, the people below him get better. So the tide rises and then everybody in the organization can handle those problems a lot more effectively. That, and he said, just like some of the world's most powerful leaders, Alexander the Great, our presidents, people that lead nations, they build a powerful cabinet around them. That resonated with me. They typically have X amount of cabinet members around them that get things done. So they find highly capable people that can execute on their behalf, and they can be up there at the top, leading these people to be a lot more nimble in what they would have tried to get done on their own in maybe a tenth of the time. That's been a big thing in our organization. We try to invest in our people. We try to go out and find very talented people, even in these new businesses they are, because we have so much going on. I can't afford to hire somebody that's like low caliber or inexperienced that's going to constantly hit with question, and do it. Like, I need a badass. I need a problem solver. Somebody can spearhead something. And it's difficult to find those people, but invest in them, spend the extra money, keep searching for them. You'll find them. When you find them and you bring them into your organization, your world will get so much better. And I would say I would attribute that to success in our agency too. We have great leaders in here. When our leaders leave, we try to have a succession plan for them, somebody to step in. We got to spend a little bit of time with them, but spend the time with them, grow your leaders, because they're the ones that are going to look out for your organization. Some people I'll see have the time, like they're so scared, like people are in scarcity mode. Like, I don't want to teach or train my people. I don't want to expose them to agency ownership, because if they leave me, I'm stuck finding the next person. And I think that's backwards thinking. That's actually poisonous thinking, because by doing that, you're going to lose that person anyways. But by also doing that too, I think it's a more detrimental impact having untrained people in your organization than having high caliber people that you're investing in that know that you care about them and you want to help them get to the next level. I've always found doing what's right by them wins every single time. And we didn't just blink and get to where we were overnight. It was literally years building, just think about it as a foundation, and we put a block at a time, one block. Too many people out there, you want to get there overnight, and there's no quick way to get there, but people want to get there quick. So I think the trap they fall in is they look for that silver shiny bullet to get there, and that doesn't exist. And there's some people that fall into this never-ending pattern of chasing that shiny bullet that's just not out there. It is out there, and I'll tell you what it looks like. It's busting your ass and hard work. Like, put the work in, and that's the magic bullet. If I can give everybody like the advice out there, the golden nugget, go out there, bust your ass, level up, and put the work in, and you will grow, and you'll raise the tide underneath you.
Love it.
Love it. Knowledge and consistent execution, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, we will work on double time to get this thing edited, pushed up so that we can get it in before Tuesday.
Okay, perfect. That's great.
And we'll push it to the groups so that you get as much visibility as possible.
No, that means a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll do it tonight. I'll finish it and then Craig can upload it tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it, guys.
We really appreciate your time and you dropping all these knowledge bombs, Dave.
No, anytime, man. I'm glad to. Love it.
Dave, you got a big heart, man. It's awesome.
Thank you, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, you guys too.
Awesome to hear so much
Thank you.
positivity.
Absolutely, man. No, thank you. Well, love what you guys do too, and listening to you guys. So
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Dave.
We'll see you on the next one.
all right, absolutely. I'll look forward to it. You guys have a good rest of your day. Thank you for the opportunity.
Cool.
Yep.
Thanks,
See
Dave.
ya.
All right, take care, guys.
Hey, Jason.
Yes, Mr. Craig.
That was another awesome episode, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if people want to get a little bit more action and learn how to do write 100,000 in premium
Yes.
off of even the worst internet leads, where could they go?
They can go to live.teledudes.com.
Ooh, that sounds exciting. Are we going to be there?
Yes, it's a weekly call that we're doing right now it's live and it will show you the process. The entire process is super awesome.
I love it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Sign up right now, live.teledudes.com.
Live.teledudes.com. That's live.teledudes.com.
Hey, Craig, there's a new community that we are starting that I cannot wait to tell everybody about. It is our live texting community where you and I are going to answer people's questions and give them free content, right?
Are you kidding me? We get to talk to them?
Yeah, which is awesome, but they have to opt in. They have to text us at 520-214-2219. That's 520-214-2219.
Nice.
Craig, are you going to respond to these texts?
I'm going to respond to them for sure. Live.
I'm into it too. It's going to be awesome. And it's going to be our new texting community where we're going to get back to everybody that we can and drop some crazy content, free content, and free the calculator that you just came up with. That's right. The calling calculator, sales material. I mean, everything for insurance agents. This is it. It's the best texting community out there for insurance agents.
Well, what the heck is that number again? I can't remember it.
It's 520-214-2219. That's
Okay.
520-214-2219.
I love it. I'm going to text it right now.
520-214-2219.
All right. I'll see you later, Mr. Jason.
Bye, Mr. Craig.
Wait, do they even listen to this on the radio anymore?
I love it. I love it.
Nice.
All right.